So our sponsor today is GLSA, and for those non-members who may be dropping in on the call today, GLSA, or Group Legal Services Association, is an affiliate of the American Bar Association, is a professional membership organization representing the legal services plan industry and provider attorneys. And joining GLSA is just a good way for solos to increase their business. Check it out on glsaonline.org. Okay, my name is Tom Martin, and I'll be moderating this morning. I'm very excited because we're very lucky to have Billie Tarascio as our speaker today. And the topic for today is how to avoid professional burnout. And we did send out an email about how to avoid solo burnout, but this can apply generally to any professional. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to avoid professional burnout today. This is the third in GLSA's 2016-2017 all-member teleconference series. Billie Tarascio, she attended University of San Diego Law School and University of Oregon School of Law, graduated in 2005, and she worked at several firms in Eugene, including the Department of Justice, Family Law Division, the nonprofit A Family for Every Child, and clerked at Lane County Juvenile Court under Justice Kip Leonard. She's a skilled practitioner, national speaker, law firm business consultant, and a Martindale-Hubbell honored attorney. She was granted the prestigious Client Distinction Award based on her communications ability, responsiveness, quality of service, and value for her money, and fewer than 4% of attorneys nationwide have received that distinction. So with that, I'll hand it over to Billie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, good morning, Tom. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You make me sound much cooler than I actually am. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk about burnout and how to, kind of balance this crazy thing called life that we've got right now. So thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. I was thinking that maybe we can start with, how do you recognize burnout?
Sure. I know so I think the starting point is really knowing yourself really well, and knowing what it is that you like to do, what gives you energy, what brings you joy, what you're good at, and those functions that take away from that. And kind of recognizing where you're spending most of your time. Because if you're spending most of your time in a place that gives you energy, then you're a lot less likely to face burnout. But we all get there, even if we're operating within our area of strength. You can only put in so many hours. So I know for me, when I'm getting burnt out, I'm not sleeping well. I'm feeling myself, be a little bit more stressed out at home. I'm finding, just kind of checking in with myself and finding that things aren't going quite as smoothly as they could be. And I think at that point, the best thing you can do is just kind of recognize that and acknowledge it. Sometimes you can't do anything about it. Like I just finished this very, very large case, and it required a ton of hours, and there was some burnout, but there was no way around it. It needed to be done. And then when the case wrapped up in mid-November, then I got to kind of, do what I needed to do to get back into balance.
That's right. I think you mentioned that you were going to trial in a couple of cases, right?
There was just one that was so massive that required, was about a month of nonstop work, no day off, all day on the weekends. And that, to me, that caused a certain level of burnout.
And I think a lot of the lawyers that are listening today have gone through that very experience, where you've just have so much going on and it's a daily grind. What do you think are some helpful activities or a good way to approach it that would be helpful?
I think the biggest thing is awareness and knowing, I'm in a place right now that is not a place that I want to be forever. It's fine. We can all handle more stress than normal sometimes, through a season. It's when people don't recognize that they're operating at a level that's not sustainable and they do it for too long without acknowledging it, that you really face burnout. And then what we've got is we've got lawyers leaving the profession thinking they can't be lawyers, which is unfortunate because we've spent all this time and money to become really great lawyers and to add something of value to society. But if you don't take care of yourself, then what happens is you end up, either struggling with addiction, like many of us do, or leaving the profession altogether.
Well, in terms of burnout, how do you differentiate it from, I just don't like what I'm doing, or I just I don't like working for this firm versus burnout. Do you think there's a line to be drawn there?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. How do you differentiate between I don't like my job or I'm not happy with what I'm doing, or I'm simply working too hard and I need to make changes to what I'm doing in order to like it? It's a great question. And I think it goes back to really knowing yourself and knowing what brings you joy. What is your strength? What are your God-given talents that you're supposed to be doing? And are you using those? Do you have the ability to use those unique gifts in your work? And if you do, then I feel like it's not the firm, it's not the job. It might be that you're just asking too much of yourself. And if you're not, if you're in a position where you don't get to use your God-given unique talents, then you're probably not in the right position.
Okay. So, daily, what are some things that we can do as busy professionals to keep ourselves in a positive place where we won't fall into burnout?
So much of this I think comes down to whole health. Things like, what are you putting in your body for food? How many hours of sleep are you getting each night? I mean, the more we learn about the importance of food and sleep, I don't think it can be underestimated. And many of us think it just doesn't meet the priority list. We are not taking care of our health. And if we don't take care of our health, then we cannot be the best practitioner that we could be. We can't be the best business person that we could be. So I would start there.
Well, what about food, for example? Like, is there kind of particular foods or a diet of some kind that you think would be more helpful to staying in a healthy place instead of getting too stressed out? Is there some foods that are helpful in that way?
I am a huge fan of whole foods, whole eating, not eating stuff out of a box. And I don't follow any rules at all. So if I want to eat something, I eat it. For me, it's all about, balance and health and recognizing the role that food has as nutrition and medicine. It really is remarkable what food can do for you. But I don't think that there's a one size fits all. I think actually, there was a great study that was done recently that looked at all the different diets, and it set out to determine, okay, what's the best? Are the vegans the healthiest? Are the vegetarians the healthiest? Is it the Mediterranean diet? Is it the Atkins diet? And it really looked at all the different diets. And what they found was that people can be healthy on any diet. Any of those diets can lead to a healthy individual. What it really comes down to is just the amount of what you're eating and the substance of what you're eating.
Okay. Just by the way, are there certain times of day that make sense for eating and reducing stress?
Yeah, I think, taking care of yourself means making eating a priority, even if you maybe don't want to, eat, or you don't feel hungry at this moment. I think eating breakfast is essential. And I don't know, I forget because I'm getting kids out the door to school, and I know that, making breakfast a priority can be difficult. But in our office, we have a really open attendance policy and a mobile work policy. So like today I'm working from home, and I just went and made eggs and had breakfast pretty late. And that's great. That's really nice for me because I didn't really want to eat breakfast at 8 a.m. So if I had gone to the office today, then I would have figured out how to eat earlier. But I think it's just working that into your routine, and taking the time to make it a priority. If you know you need to work, then take advantage of lunches with people. You have to eat, and it's a great way to have meetings with your employees or your colleagues or networking partners. So that can help make it a priority.
That's really great. I think, unfortunately, I tend to skip lunch sometimes, so I might be guilty of stressing myself out more than I need to.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. And another point you made was in terms of health, that some helpful activities to avoid stress might be physical. So what are some of those activities that you might incorporate into your own life and think would be helpful for other professionals to do?
I think with exercise, it's a lot like food, where this is a personal thing. Uh, Without a doubt, movement is essential. That's not personal. But how somebody exercises can really vary, and you can be very healthy. I recently read that you don't have to do intense physical exercise to enjoy the benefits of exercise. So for me personally, I have recently in the last year fallen in love with yoga. And in my 20s, I did yoga, and I thought, oh, this is the stupidest thing ever. I'm not exercising. Why am I laying here? Because, I was used to kickboxing and jumping up and down and sweating a lot. But now I'm, in my mid 30s, and yoga is amazing. And it feels like I'm multitasking because I'm getting strength and flexibility and mindfulness and peace and calm at the same time. And I'm not sweating. So I'm a huge fan of yoga. And in my firm, we've recently incorporated, we do these retreats. Once a quarter, we do retreats. And last month, we did an all-day retreat to figure out, okay, what are we going to do as a firm in 2017? And one of the things that came out from my employees was how they wanted to incorporate wellness. So we are every other Friday bringing in a wellness instructor who's going to do with us education on communication and connection with one another, and mindfulness and rest and yoga and sleep and hydration. And then we're going to close early 2 Fridays a month. So I think figuring out a way to work it into the routine to make it a priority, and to tell your clients and coworkers, taking care of yourself is important. And it doesn't look the same for everybody. Different people have different levels of energy, and with regards to the number of hours that they want to put into their practice, and also the type of hours. Like some people are morning people and they do best from 6 to 2, and other people are night people. And there's no reason in this day and age that we cannot customize our work life to meet our needs.
So do you do that at your firm? Do you accommodate people based on their their personal preferences in terms of being a morning person or more of an evening person? Is that possible to do?
Yes, especially for the attorneys. It's harder for the staff, honestly, the support staff, who really are required to be available. Or, I mean, not required, because we are pretty flexible, but it's more important for the staff, some staff member, to be available during all business hours. For the attorneys, they control their calendars. So they can work from home. They just need to write on the calendar that they're working from home. They can block themselves out for exercise during the noon hour or in the morning or whatever. And they can make themselves available to clients in the evenings or early morning by letting our intake person know for scheduling, or scheduling their own appointments. So yeah, we have a really flexible work policy. So one of our values is whole health, and uh, we allow a ton of flexibility, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. So we are also tracking key performance indicators and data to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to do. So it only works if you also include that accountability portion where everyone knows what's expected and they're accountable to the team and they're accountable to their clients.
And I think that's a really great point. Is there some system of accountability that you would recommend for, so that we talked about food, we talked about health and exercise. Is there some kind of system that we could use or that you use for keeping track of that and making sure that we stay on top of it?
You mean for the health side?
Yeah, are there any helpful tools?
I think so. There's a ton of apps out there that will help you, you know, just writing down what you eat can make a massive difference in what you decide to put into your body. If you are struggling with weight or health and you really want to make nutrition a priority, I would recommend, instead of going out and following some strict diet and trying to change your whole life, start with simply writing down what you're putting into your body. That's it. And I've read it can make a massive difference in weight and in health and how you feel about food and your relationship with food. So that's one thing that you can do to be accountable to yourself. We cannot underestimate the power of sleep. We cannot. Making sleep a priority and good sleep habits a priority has to be something that we're thinking about. And then as far as exercise, one way to be accountable would be to join a group. There's online apps where you can commit to writing down what you're doing for exercise, or just meeting a friend. So this is going to be highly individualized and what works for you. I love going to yoga. It's my favorite part of my whole week, so there's no need for any accountability.
Mm-hmm. But definitely the fact that it's part of a group that you're participating with, do you think that helps?
Yeah, I do. I like having an instructor. I like having a set time, so it's not just go whenever you're going to go. That works well for me. So some people are really social and they would do really well doing team sports, and they would really benefit from that social contact and the social nature of the sports. Other people, let's say they're more introverted and they spend all day talking to clients and they just want to run by themselves with their headphones listening to a podcast or a book, and that is awesome. That is great. It comes back to the fundamental first point that I made, which is kind of know thyself. And that has to be the start of every single topic that we talk about.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned sleep, and I'm kind of smiling because I know that I definitely need to get more of it, and I'm sure that plenty of the people that are listening would like to have more sleep. Do you have any suggestions for maybe habits or rituals or ways of incorporating it into our routine so that we can make sure to get plenty of sleep, or at least the sleep that we would need?
Yeah. There's so many things that we can do. Decreasing screen time, which is a huge struggle for all of us, would make a massive difference in our ability to calm down and go to sleep. For people who really struggle, I have a friend who does who puts on a meditation that really walks her through relaxing and emptying her mind, because as lawyers, we think about our clients all day and all night. I mean, we spend our showers with our clients in some ways, thinking about their cases and solving their problems, right?
Yep.
So being able to practice that mindfulness and turning it off, learning how to turn it off, I think would make a big difference in our ability to sleep.
You mentioned decreasing screen time,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that I'm definitely guilty of that. I'll be in bed checking out my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any ground rules or habits that you think are good to implement to try to decrease screen time?
I do. In my house, I'm kind of uptight about this. Phones are not allowed at the dinner table. We eat dinner together every night. It's not an option. Um, and I don't have a television in my bedroom. I don't have a television in any of the kids' bedrooms. And I really try not to bring my computer or my phone to bed because like we stare at the screens all day. It's where we get our entertainment, it's where we work, it's a huge part of what we do, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, but there has to be a downside when it's pinging all day, and we know there's evidence that this pinging and constantly taking our attention is not in our best interest. We have to have some boundaries. So for me, that's the boundary: dinner table and bedrooms.
Those are good rules, and I'm going to try to implement them here if I can. Um, so how long do you think is healthy for getting sleep? Do you think it's the good old 8 hours a night? Is that possible? Is that achievable with the kind of work that busy professionals do?
I think it's absolutely achievable, but different people need different amounts of sleep. But there is no reason that we should be working. I mean, most of the people here are business owners or solos, but I'm going to say this for everybody because this applies to everybody. There's no reason we need to spend more than 8 hours a day working on a normal day. There are times, like I talked about, where you have to push ahead, you have to do more. But on a daily basis, if you're working more than 8 hours a day, you're probably going to burn out. Unless you are somebody who just loves working and works for fun, and there are those people. But for the vast majority of us, if we're working more than that, we need to take a look at what we're actually doing and how to become more efficient with our time.
Hmm. And speaking of time, so far, we've talked about food, exercise, sleep, all of these great things, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, how do I find the time for this? Like they're all great um, ideas and things to focus on, and I think that we get drawn into the daily grind and kind of forget about how we're going to budget the time for these things. Is there is there some approach that you use that you find useful or effective for managing time?
Um, I think this all comes down to habits. Uh, there's a great popular book out right now called The Power of Habit. And so, you're saying it's hard to find the time. For me, it's really not because it's built into my routine. I wake up with kiddos and, everybody eats something for breakfast and get them to school. And then I go to work. And then for lunch, I usually have a meeting with an employee or um, someone who I'm meeting for lunch, and then because I'm responsible for 4 children along with other people. I have a ton of help, so it's not like I'm the only person responsible, but I am responsible to my family to get home and make dinner the vast majority of most nights. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner are all built into my everyday routine. Um,
Mhm.
Sleep is the same thing. There's a rhythm to the day, and when the rhythm includes all of these kind of things that benefit your health, I don't know. I don't know what else we would be doing with our time.
Okay, so making a list of all the, I'm just kind of thinking of it from my point of view, probably making a list of all of the different things that have to be done that day, and then trying to add in things that can help me to remain healthy and not as stressed out, and just try to budget time between those things to make it all work.
Yeah. Um, what does your routine look like on a daily basis?
um, well, I get up, I take my daughter to school, come back, jump on the computer, and I I left out breakfast. I usually do grab some breakfast after I've dropped off my daughter, and then I get on the computer and kind of work until about 2 when I realize that I haven't had lunch. And then, depending on the day, I might have to run out to pick up my daughter at 3 o'clock, which is Monday and Friday. Otherwise, I continue working on till about 5 or 6 without a stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that I'm probably the poster child of what we're trying to fight against in this presentation.
Well, and so what do you do for dinner?
Um, so for dinner, sometimes I'll be able to help out and prepare that when my wife gets home. But I confess that most of the time she gets home before me, or she gets done with work before I do, and she starts dinner. And yeah, sometimes when I do have time, I'll be able to help out. And I love barbecuing, so that's something I can help with.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I have done, because there are extreme demands on my time between I have 2 companies, I have 10 employees and 4 kids and a husband. So there are constant demands on my attention. And what that has made me do is really filter out anything that is not necessary. And so I am constantly asking myself, what is the best use of my time? So there is not a lot of wasted time. There's not a lot of TV. I don't watch, regular news. During the day, I try to be very intentional about how I'm spending my time. And I really do kind of think it comes back to habits and healthy habits. So I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think another part of this that we haven't talked about, we've kind of focused on the things, that affect us personally, like our, what we eat, what, how much sleep we get. But there's also the relationships, right, with our family and friends, and of course, burnout affects that, and just stress in general affects that. Do you think that maintaining friendships and having lunch with colleagues, that helps to keep the stress away?
Without a doubt. And I'm so happy you mentioned that. Um, Man, I mean, it's crazy all of the things that we balance when you think about it. When you think about work and our families and the relationships that we have, what a like it's we're walking a tightrope, to get it all done and to take care of ourselves in the meantime. Um, there was a period of time where we were struggling at my law firm. There were people who were kind of just struggling with personal depression, and it was bleeding over into a lot of kind of conflict and animosity at work. And the same thing could happen at home, where for instance, if your spouse is really struggling at work and they're stressed out and not doing well, then you're at home and that's difficult. Or I have one kiddo who kind of struggles, and that can really throw a huge wrench in relationships. And when those are out of balance or not healthy or not addressed, nothing else works. So how do we manage that? We as a firm read Crucial Conversations, which is a great book for business, for personal. You've read it?
No, who's the author of that? Crucial
I
Conversations?
don't remember at this moment. I can look it up. Um, but it's great. And it's a little repetitive, but it's fantastic. And the authors are Patterson, Grenny, McMillan, and Switzler. I would highly recommend it. 3 million copies sold. It's a good one. So its premise is that being able to have difficult conversations,
Hmm.
direct, key conversations, can make the biggest difference in our relationships at work and at home and the performance of our business. So we as a firm read this book, and we have a weekly meeting. Um, and as part of that weekly meeting, we've also built in small clips of the book to kind of come back and just remind us how to have difficult conversations. Or, like an example was, leaders in industry and meetings, and what makes somebody a great communicator. And we as bosses may sometimes become really convicted and authoritative. And when we're having a meeting, that energy and that authority may influence whether or not you're getting the best and most honest feedback from the people around you. And we need that crucial information. We need all of the information we possibly can get into the pool of meaning in order to make the best decisions. But if people are afraid to talk and they're quiet, or they're angry and they're lashing out, or they're scared to say something because they're afraid that it might not be popular, then we all lose. So by reminding ourselves as a company every single week about this, about a little piece of crucial conversations, it has impacted our ability to communicate with each other and with our clients and with our personal relationships as well.
Yeah, it's definitely all intertwined, where maintaining a healthy stress level uh, is important, not only for ourselves and our health and avoiding uh, burnout, but also um, just to keep going and to have a healthy and happy life. Um, do you have any personal examples that you don't mind sharing with us about um, a situation where you were dealing with stress or potential burnout from your work?
Yeah, and for me, it wasn't just work. It was also like, so I have four kids. My older two, um, when so my oldest is Sebastian. He's 12, and the kiddo after that is Isaiah. He's now 9. When Sebastian was about 1, my husband Tony was deployed. He went to Iraq, and he was there for, between the training and being in Iraq, it was about 15 months. And Isaiah was born when Tony was gone. And so at that point, I was balancing a toddler, a newborn, work, and taking care of everything that needed to be taken care of at home. And it wasn't sustainable. It just wasn't. I wasn't operating within my place of personal strength. I was spending, honestly, too much time at home with babies, which is not a popular thing for women to be able to say. But for me, I was home most of the time with kids, isolated, and I wasn't in my place of strength. I'm not the preschool mom or the arts teacher, and I adore my children and I love spending time with them, but that was trying to trying to trying to be the mom I wasn't, the mom that can play with all the preschool kids all day, wasn't
Yeah.
in my best interest, and it wasn't in my children's best interest. So by being able to understand that and get a nanny who was born to play with Play-Doh and crafts all day, was a great thing. And that was one thing that I needed to do. But the other thing is, when Tony, my husband, got back from Iraq, we had a conversation, and um, he was far in his career, and he was close to retirement, but I couldn't do it again, and he couldn't do it again, and it wasn't going to be best for our family. And so that might have been a hard decision career wise, and we've had to do that a number of times, where we have to say, okay, based on our personal health and the needs of our family and the needs of our career, what is the decision to make? And it doesn't mean that anything has to be sacrificed necessarily, although sometimes it feels like you have to make a sacrifice. It's really just coming up with another direction or another solution that allows you to do all of the wonderful things that you want to do, your career, your family, your relationships.
And those are all wonderful points. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I know that we all have probably had similar ones, and everything that you've talked about are great ways for us to keep track of our stress and avoid burnout. I was wondering if there was any other pointers or advice that you think that would be helpful for us or for the listeners today.
I think it's okay to say I'm drowning. And there was a time when Tony was gone where I could very honestly say I'm drowning, and being able to say that without guilt. I think guilt is probably one of the most worthless emotions, um, because it's not truth, you know? Blame and guilt and all of this pressure that we put on ourselves um, takes away from our ability to be successful. And what we're learning is the self-talk that people have is usually negative. That's what I read, that people, the things they tell themselves are not true, and it's negative and it's harmful, and somehow we're, as a society, we think that that's okay or that that's necessary in order to become better. And I couldn't disagree more. I think being honest with ourselves and making sure that we're not engaging in negative self-talk, but we are accurate. So if you're drowning, it's okay to say I'm drowning, and be courageous enough to make changes because you're worth it. And if you don't take care of your health, then we can't do anything else well. And that's what's happening, I think, with many attorneys and many people, is we are not taking care of ourselves and our health and our emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, our social well-being. We're spending so much time on work, work, work. And it really takes away from our ability to be our best self and to do our best work.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. That we definitely need to take care of ourselves and to ask for help when we need it. And Billie, I just want to thank you so much for today. There was a tremendous amount of really great and useful advice that we can use to avoid stress in our professional lives. And thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
Well, thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're really welcome. I checked to see if we had any questions submitted, and unfortunately, we don't at this point.
So I'm live streaming this on Facebook, and there are a number of comments there.
Oh, feel free.
Kylie says, this was fantastic. Thank you for this. Just what I needed to hear this morning. And others are talking about pivoting, how when we change our direction, it might feel like a failure, but it's not a failure. It's a pivot. It's a change, and life is full of changes and good changes. So I think that's a great insight that we're getting from Facebook.
Well, that's really great to hear. I'm glad that it's helping people to think about it differently, because it's definitely something that I think gives, it's kind of a scarlet letter, burnout, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
As long as we manage, our lives more healthily, we can avoid it. All right, so I just want to thank everyone for attending our teleconference today, How to Avoid Professional Burnout with Billie Tarascio. Again, this is Tom Martin, the moderator, and I want to thank our speaker, Billie, again for speaking today.
You know what, Tom, there is one more question that I saw posted here. How can volunteer work enable stress relief?
Okay.
Did you have any ideas on that?
No, I'll leave it to you.
Ah, I think it's about finding your passion, and we know scientifically and based on studies that volunteer work does help us get into a place of gratitude, and that gratitude helps our mental health on all areas. So I think volunteer work is a great idea for stress relief.
I agree. I think the gratitude is definitely a, a healthy way to think about the world and keeps us out of that negative loop
Hmm.
that sometimes comes up. So just one last thing, I want to thank GLSA for hosting. That's a Group Legal Services Association. Remember, joining GLSA is just a good way for solo and small firms to increase their business. And again, check them out at glsaonline.org. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Tom. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.